The first time my mother called me possessed, she did not raise her voice. That is the detail people never understand when I tell this story now. They expect screaming. They expect violence. They expect something dramatic enough that a child would immediately know something terrible was happening. But fear inside strict religious homes rarely arrives dramatically. It arrives quietly. Like a door closing softly downstairs when you thought everyone was asleep. Like the sound of adults whispering your name through thin walls. Like your own mother standing at the edge of your bed in the dark looking at you as though she is trying to decide whether you still belong to God. My name is Rebecca. I grew up inside a small holiness church community in rural Kentucky where people believed demons could enter girls more easily than boys. Especially girls who asked too many questions. Especially girls who read too much. Especially girls who did not obey quickly enough. If stories about hidden family systems, religious control, emotional survival, and the truths people were never supposed to speak out loud matter to you, I'd appreciate you subscribing to the channel. These stories are written carefully and honestly, and your support helps keep them alive. And before I continue, I want to ask you something. Have you ever grown up in a place where simply disagreeing with adults made you feel guilty for existing? Because I did. Every single day. Now, before I tell you what happened that night, you need to understand the world I grew up inside. Our church believed girls were responsible for the spiritual condition of the entire household. If a father became angry, the women had failed. If a husband strayed, the wife had failed. If children became rebellious, the mother had failed. And if a daughter seemed distant from God, well, people started watching her carefully. My father was a respected man in our church. Quiet. Serious. The kind of man who quoted scripture more often than he laughed. People admired him. They admired my mother too. At church they called her steady, which was church language for a woman who had learned how to disappear correctly. I was the oldest of 5 children. And from the beginning, people said I was difficult. Not sinful. Not wild. Just difficult. Because I asked questions nobody wanted to answer. Questions like, why are boys allowed to speak during Bible study while girls stay quiet? Why does God only seem angry at women? Why do mothers always look tired in church but fathers always look important? I stopped asking those questions out loud eventually. Not because I stopped thinking them. But because I learned what happened to girls who made adults uncomfortable. The women would smile at you less. Your Sunday school teacher would start using you as examples during lessons. Your mother would begin correcting things that never mattered before. The way you sat. The way you laughed. The way your skirt moved when you walked. Everything became spiritual. Everything became dangerous. I was 13 the night everything changed. It was August. Hot enough that the windows stayed open after dark. I remember hearing crickets outside while my younger brother slept on mattresses across the hallway. I remember the smell of starch from the dress my mother had ironed earlier that evening. And I remember the exact sentence that started it. My father had asked me during family Bible reading why I seemed distracted lately. I should have lied. A smart girl would have lied. But I said the truth. I said, sometimes I think God sounds cruel in the Old Testament. Silence. That kind of silence changes the temperature of a room. My father slowly closed the Bible. My younger siblings stared at the table. My mother looked at me the way people look at smoke inside a house. Not panic. Recognition. And then my father asked quietly, where did you hear thoughts like that? I said nowhere. Because it was true. That was apparently worse. Nobody shouted. Nobody hit me. My father simply stood up and said, Rebecca, go to your room. So I did. I remember sitting on my bed afterward trying to convince myself I had not done something terrible. I remember hearing my parents talking downstairs for over an hour. Too quietly to understand. Then sometime after midnight, my bedroom door opened. My mother stepped inside carrying a small oil lamp. She sat at the edge of my bed without speaking. And finally she whispered, Rebecca, your father thinks Satan may be confusing your mind. I genuinely thought she was joking. I almost laughed. But then I looked at her face and realized she meant it. That was the moment fear entered my life permanently. Not fear of demons. Fear of adults who believed demons explained every feeling they did not want to understand. I asked my mother what would happen now. She smoothed my blanket carefully before answering. We are going to help you come back to God. Help. That word sounds very different depending on who is using it. The next morning my father announced we would begin a family correction. Which meant no reading materials outside scripture. No speaking during Bible study unless spoken to. No visits with girls from neighboring churches. No humming secular songs. No unnecessary mere time. And every evening after supper, I would sit alone with my father while he questioned me about my thoughts. At church the following Sunday, 3 women approached me separately asking if I was feeling spiritually settled again. I had not told anyone. Which meant my parents had. That is another thing people misunderstand about strict communities. Privacy does not exist there. Your struggles become community property almost immediately. And once adults begin discussing you spiritually, your own version of yourself stops mattering. The church decides who you are. And children are expected to accept the verdict. Weeks passed. Then months. The questioning intensified slowly. My father began asking whether I experienced sinful urges. Whether I resented authority. Whether I felt anger toward God. Whether impure thoughts entered my mind during prayer. I learned quickly that honesty was dangerous. So I began performing obedience instead. I lowered my eyes. Softened my voice. Repeated scriptures correctly. Apologized constantly. And eventually the warmth returned. That is how systems like this survive. They remove love carefully. Then reward submission by bringing it back. One evening my mother hugged me for the first time in weeks after family prayer. And I remember nearly crying from relief. Not because anything had truly improved. But because human beings will tolerate almost anything if they think affection depends on it. That realization took me years to understand. At 14 I only understood survival. At 15 I became very good at it. At 16 I stopped recognizing myself completely. And at 17, someone finally told me the truth. Her name was Miriam. She was the pastor's wife. And one afternoon while helping prepare food for a church revival, she pulled me aside near the kitchen doorway and said quietly, "Rebecca, I need you to understand something before your spirit disappears completely." I remember staring at her because nobody in our church spoke like that. Especially not women. She kept folding dish towels while she talked. Never looking directly at me. She said, "When people are afraid of losing control over a girl, they call her dangerous instead. It sounds holier that way." I felt my entire body go cold. Because deep down, I had known. I had known for years. I just needed another adult to say it out loud fast. That conversation changed my life. Not immediately. Real change almost never happens immediately. First comes recognition. Then grief. Then anger. Then eventually, movement. I left home 1 month after my 18th birthday. I wish I could tell you my parents cried. I wish I could tell you somebody begged me to stay. But silence was still the language of our family. My father carried my suitcase to the porch. My mother stood behind the screen door holding my youngest sister. Nobody hugged me. Nobody blessed me. My father only said one sentence. He said, "If you walk away from God now, the world will eat you alive." Then he turned around and walked back inside. For years I thought maybe he was right. Because living cost me almost everything. My church. My family. My identity. The only world I understood. But years later, sitting in a therapist's office trying to explain why guilt still flooded my body every time I disagreed with someone, I finally learned the words nobody in my church would ever use. Religious coercion. Conditional affection. Psychological control. Fear-based compliance. And maybe the most painful realization of all. Children raised inside fear often mistake emotional survival for faith. I do not hate my parents. That surprises people sometimes. But hatred would make this story simpler than it really is. My parents were raised the same way. Fear passed down to them, then passed down to me. That is how systems survive generations. Not through monsters. Through normal people too frightened to question what hurt them. But someone has to question it eventually. Someone has to become the first person willing to say, "This harmed me." Even if their voice shakes. Even if nobody from home ever speaks to them again. If you have ever been taught that obedience mattered more than your humanity, I see you. If you were ever punished emotionally for asking questions, I see you. If love was given to you only when you became smaller, quieter, easier to control, I see you too. And before this video ends, I want you to remember something I wish someone had told me when I was 13 years old sitting alone in that bedroom. Questioning something harmful does not make you evil. Sometimes it is the first honest thing your soul has ever done. And if this story stayed with you, tell me in the comments. What part hurt the most? And did someone in your life ever quietly tell you the truth when everyone else wanted you silent? Subscribe if you want more stories from behind closed systems, hidden communities, and quiet emotional survival. There is still so much more to say.